So RIP Ronnie Lee Smith 11. Okay. So I went ahead and I typed up a Wikipedia page for Ronnie Lee Smith because as the survivors, as the stewards of the I guess of the dead or of the memories. It comes from a Native American actually proverb, and the Native American says that even though let's see, the Native Americans, they said that when you say the name of the deceased, Ronnie Lee Smith, to the earth, he is still alive. So as long as Ronnie Lee Smith is being talked about, as long as his name is being said, then he is still alive, okay? And that's absolutely true. While there's some mythical or a mystical quality to it, there's the reality of it is, since we're the living, we're the ones that put together the videos and the pictures and the stories. We're the ones that keep those stories going, and there's plenty of stories to keep alive. Ronnie Lee Smith had claimed to have cured over 200 cases of terminal cancer, and in his own cancer, the one of the biggest things that had bothered me, actually, there was people that was on topics sitting there kind of laughing at him, saying that, oh, he cured cancer, but he died of cancer, so clearly he's an idiot. He don't know what he's talking about, right? He died of leukemia, supposedly. We don't know because he was cremated. There's no toxicology report or autopsies, but it's not true. It's not true, okay? So he had found out that he had cancer in early 2000s, 2005, 2006, when he was working on Jack Herer's book. And he says he was eating these, like the leaves or the extra trimmings of the leaves, and he noticed that his lumps had went down. So since 2006 up until, about 2013, before he went into that Arizona jail, he had either cured his cancer or he had maintained it to where it didn't take a hold of him and kill him. Okay, so maybe not the cure, but definitely a maintenance thing. Okay, yes, we do need more science into it, but we know how the government is. We know how the government is with the research of marijuana. We know how strong people are about it. People are so fucking bigoted and so ignorant about this shit. Just watch the Relay for Life, okay? So he goes to this Relay for Life event in Warsaw, Kentucky, where he had actually been born and raised, essentially, in Gallatin County. That's where he spent most of his childhood and adult years. And you have all these so-called Christians who supposedly give a shit about cancer, but they didn't give a shit, okay? He had the cure for cancer. He's able to cure over 200 cases of, and it's not just cancer. There was Parkinson's disease. There was seizures. There's, overall, he's saying that it's a gift from God, and so there's a life force. There's all these cannabinoid receptors, okay, that all of our entire body uses. And the only way, basically, the way the science is reading is that we as human beings needed these cannabinoid receptors activated. And the only way to do that is through marijuana. So what it does by activating these receptors is it makes the human body as strong as it could, and the human body is incredible at healing itself. So it's a very strong argument, and it worked for him for 7 years. So he was able to at the very least, okay, if he didn't cure the thing, he was able to maintain it. His lumps went down. He had observed this. It's a primary source, and it's observation. So this is scientific, okay? The scientific, the way you do science, you have a theory, you have observations, then you test a hypothesis, you use experiments, and then you see if your hypothesis was correct by the experiments that you'd put out there. So there's 200 cases of cancer that he had solved. So that means there's 200 people on this planet, maybe even in America, that have stories about it. During the campaign, he had interviewed several folks actually about it, and I was going to make a list of all the people that he had cured and the disease that they had cured them of, but Wikipedia had deleted basically most of the stuff, and it's bullshit. The reason why I think it's bullshit is because it's an ongoing thing. There's 2 multi-million-dollar lawsuits that's on the table right now, okay? So they say, oh, he cured cancer, or they say he cured cancer, but he died of cancer, so what the fuck is up with that? Well, I'll tell you what the fuck is up with that. For 7 years, his cancer was not strangling him or killing him. The lumps had gone down to minuscule, basically zero. There was basically very little, if any, cancer that was even involved or inside in him. It could have just regenerated. And I think that's what it had done. If I was the family, or if I was the one in control of the estate of Ronnie Lee Smith, then I would definitely go after these people, because the jailers, the Arizona jail, had killed him. The jail murdered him, okay? While he was in jail in Arizona 2013, he was in jail for about 3 to 4 months. He was in prison, and he had gone there. He had medical marijuana card. He had all of his, his supplies. That was his medicine. He had he had all the documentation that said that he needed this in order to live. Well, the Arizona jail did not give a shit. So that fucking cop in that fucking Arizona jail, and anybody that was involved in holding him in jail and not allowing him to get his medicine, are culpable for murdering him. They eventually released him, and they dumped him out at Good Samaritan Hospital once it became apparent that he was going to die. And the way Ronnie says was, they didn't want to pay his bills. They didn't want to pay his bills, so therefore they dumped him at Good Samaritan Hospital and said, fuck it, we don't want to hold him anymore for supposedly breaking the law. Even though they have a medical marijuana law in Arizona. So, I mean, the fucking contradictions just get bigger and bigger and bigger. The more you look into this, it's absolutely fucking ridiculous. They murdered him. The fucking Arizona fucking jail killed him. So for 3 to 4 months he's in jail, then he's rushed to the hospital because he's about dead. So when he was able to maintain himself and use the medical marijuana to keep his either cancer away or to maintain it to where it doesn't kill him, the Arizona jail took him away from his medicine until the point about where he almost perished. So they kept him in that fucking jail in order to kill him. And that was the fucking point. That's the reason why he even got those initial charges in Kentucky, was because of the same reason. They give him 3 fucking felonies. 3 felonies. He attempted to save his fucking cousin, and they give him 3 fucking felonies. A felony are murderers, rapists, thieves, people that steal, like, fucking grand theft, the fucking bank robbers and shit. Felonies are big ass fucking crimes. I saw the fucking video. You tell me he's a murderer? You tell me he's a rapist? You tell me he's a bank robber, stole millions of dollars? He ain't none of that shit, okay? The fact that Boone County, Anthony Froelich, was able to put 3 fucking felonies on him, and actually Ronnie says they convict him of 4 felonies. The fact that they was able to do that, that's absolute fucking bullshit. And the reason why they did it was because it was political assassination. He was a political prisoner. People hated Ronnie Smith because he had the cure for cancer. People hated Ronnie Smith because they didn't want to believe that something they had been protesting and keeping illegal for so many years could have actually been the saving grace, could have actually been the medicine that would save all these people. The cure for cancer, the cure for cancer. Okay, and all it was just you cook the oil up, and it was THC and CBDs. Recently, CBDs, cannabidiol or some shit, CBD. Okay, there's THC and CBD. These are the 2 sort of letter acronyms of the medical qualities of marijuana. So recently, Kentucky had legalized CBDs to stop seizures, and during the floor right there in Frankfurt, a kid was going into seizures right there on the floor. Perfect, for it sucks that kids have to go through this shit, but it was perfect for the theater of the whole thing. So Kentucky passed this law that allows medical marijuana, which is curing seizures, which is what Ronnie Lee Smith had said. Ronnie Lee Smith was the first libertarian candidate in Kentucky, so that was in 1998. He ran as a libertarian for sheriff. You have Denny Payman in Jackson County, who was standing up to Obama about all the gun grabs. Gatewood Galbraith was a lawyer, too, who had said that ultimately it's the sheriff. The sheriff is the most important person in a county that can say what goes on and what doesn't go on. The federal government doesn't have complete jurisdiction. We have a dualistic government. So we have 2 competing governments. You have the federal government, which deals with interstate commerce, freedom of speech and the amendments, and there's a separation of powers between the federal government and the state governments, and whatever the federal government doesn't have, you got the 10th Amendment that says, well, the state government gets the rest of it. So there's ultimately the sheriff is the final arbitrator of what happens in a county. And so if the feds was to come into your county, the IRS, the DEA, Obama with his gun grab, the sheriff of a county has a right to say, no, that we're going to follow the Constitution, and you're breaking the Constitution, so therefore I'm not going to enforce illegal laws. That's exactly what Denny Payman had said. He had got huge headlines when Obama tried to do his gun grab, and he was able to get, like, just a ton of attention because he's right. Denny Payman was right. So Ronnie Lee Smith is a precursor to Denny Payman, first libertarian candidate, cured over 200 terminal cancer patients, and the legacy of Steve Brashear in Kentucky and Frankfurt legalizing it. That's all Ronnie Lee Smith. Okay, he's been one of the main proponents, been pushing this for a long ass time. And he's right. He's right, okay? So he was politically assassinated because he had the cure for cancer, and unfortunately it came in this, in marijuana, which is so heavily discriminated against. And so people are such fucking assholes about this shit. Ronnie Lee Smith's whole fucking family had died of cancer. His mother, his father, his sister, his brother. It's in his family. And he says chemotherapy is what killed his family. No fucking way is he going to take any fucking chemotherapy. And that's another part of this story. So you have Ronnie Lee Smith, who's in an Arizona jail for about 3 or 4 months, and then eventually he's out in the hospital, and they're trying to fix him, and then they try to smuggle some hemp oil in for him so that way he doesn't have to go through this while they're driving across country. His sister, his womb mate, right, Renee Gibson, who was very critical of Ronnie Lee Smith during his campaign. Also, she had, I asked her to write a paragraph about his early life, and she had mentioned a couple things, and she's like, I don't know. I hate to criticize her, but frankly, she terrifies the shit out of me. She makes me think that my family would do the exact same thing. She reminds me of my sisters. And my sisters didn't give a shit about me in life, and so why the fuck, Matt Kelly or Brandon Eldridge, okay? Brandon Eldridge and Matt Kelly, that's who owns my estate. Brandon Eldridge out of Gallatin County and Matt Kelly out of Medina, Ohio. Okay, so there's it terrorizes, because my sisters didn't give a shit about me in life, so how the fuck, the oppressor's love is a sadistic love. It's a love of death, not of life. People just want to control and manipulate other people, and those types of people don't care about the subjects that they're manipulating and controlling. They hate them. They have to take away their freedom in order to control them. So the end goal of an oppressor is death. They want to smash your soul, make sure you have no will to make your own decisions, and just shut the fuck up and do as you're told. That's what oppressors do. So what she had done, and maybe there is an explanation for it, because Ronnie Lee Smith said that he had passed out and there was something that was going on. So they get him out of the hospital, the Good Samaritan Hospital. They said he only had 2 weeks to live. As they're driving back to Kentucky in order to get him some of the hemp oil that he desperately had needed, which he had used for 7 years, which had kept his cancer at bay or had kept his cancer completely gone. So that's another thing. If I'm the estate of Ronnie Lee Smith, I want to get the evidence of when he had cancer, when he didn't have cancer, what the doctor's report was, what the doctor's report wasn't. Did he have cancer, right? Of course he had cancer. That's what he died of. Did it wane? Did it disappear? He says that there was no lumps there. Is there a doctor out there in the world that said that he didn't have cancer and then that he did? Ronnie Lee Smith knows himself better than anybody else. And according to Ronnie Lee Smith, his cancer regenerated while he was in that Arizona jail. And it regenerated to the point where it almost fucking killed him. And that's when they dumped him into the Good Samaritan Hospital. So, and when he's driving across the country, I think in Kansas, he passed out. And so it was it seemed like it was an emergency situation, but Renee Gibson had put him under chemotherapy. So the chemotherapy, according to Ronnie Lee Smith, is what killed his family. Now, if he's passed out and it seemed like there was nothing else that Renee could do, that's one thing. But the chemotherapy, he was against chemotherapy himself. When he woke up and they had asked him what he wanted to do, they said that that he would have to have chemotherapy for a year, and he said, absolutely not. I'm not going to do chemotherapy for a year. He also says chemotherapy fucked with the oil. So the radiation treatments didn't allow the oil to be its best and brightest to be able to to cure his own ailments. Okay, so the chemotherapy, so people want to say, oh, he tried to cure cancer, why did he die of cancer? Well, the Arizona jail fucking forced him the cancer to regenerate. Later on, he gets chemotherapy, right? So this isn't just a pure hemp oil thing, and it's not even hemp oil. It's Jamaican hash oil. Don't listen to Wikipedia on this shit, because their definition of hemp oil and their definition of hash oil, if you want to find the cure for cancer, do not look to Wikipedia for it, because they're covering this shit up. The same way that they covered this shit up, in Gallatin County and Boone County when he tried to rescue his cousin. He didn't get arrested because he was a fucking felon. To look at cops, like, just recently, you had a Gallatin County cop and you had a Boone County cop just murder a person. Murder. That's felony worthy. you know, rescuing your cousin, that's not felony worthy. So he had chemotherapy, and he didn't have his medicine for about 3 or 4 months, and it allowed the leukemia to generate. And then eventually, several months later, the leukemia grabbed a hold of him, and they killed Ronnie Lee Smith. So it's a wrongful death lawsuit against the Arizona jail. Definitely against the Arizona jail, plus the other $2.6 million lawsuit that he had against Boone County. If I was the estate, I would sue the shit out of everybody.